Sarah Martinez was counting her last $3 when the auctioneer's gavel slammed down on the podium. "Sold to the lady in the back for $3. The crowd erupted in laughter. A few people pointed at her, whispering among themselves about the crazy veteran who just bought the most rundown motel in Bakersfield, California. "You just wasted your money, honey," called out Jim Peterson, a local real estate developer who had been eyeing the property. "That place has been abandoned for 15 years. Nothing but rats and broken dreams in there." Sarah ignored the comments and walked toward the front to complete the paperwork. Her German Shepherd Luna stayed close by her side, sensing her owner's tension. The Sunset Motel had seen better days, that was true, but Sarah saw potential where others saw decay. The clerk handed her the rusty keys with a smirk. "Good luck with that money pit, ma'am. You're gonna need it." Beat. As Sarah drove her beat-up Honda Civic toward her new property, Luna whined softly from the passenger seat. The dog had been her companion through 2 tours in Afghanistan and knew when something was weighing heavily on Sarah's mind. "It's okay, girl," Sarah said, scratching behind Luna's ears. "We've been through worse than this." The Sunset Motel sat on a dusty stretch of Highway 99, surrounded by tumbleweeds and broken asphalt. The neon sign had long since stopped working, and several letters had fallen off, leaving only Sunset Motel visible against the grey sky. Sarah parked in front of the main office and stepped out. The silence was deafening. No traffic, no people, just the sound of wind whistling through broken windows. Luna jumped out and immediately began sniffing around, her tail wagging with curiosity. The motel had 12 rooms, arranged in an L shape around a cracked swimming pool that was now home to desert weeds and debris. Room 6 sat at the corner of the L, its door hanging slightly ajar, despite being supposedly locked for over a decade. Sarah inserted the master key into the office door. It took some effort, but the lock finally gave way with a loud click. Inside, dust particles danced in the afternoon sunlight, streaming through dirty windows. The reception desk was covered in a thick layer of grime, and old registration cards were scattered across the floor. Behind the desk, Sarah found a logbook from 2008, the last year the motel had operated. She flipped through the pages, reading the names of travelers who had stayed there during its final months. Most entries were routine, but one caught her attention. Room 6, do not disturb. Management. The entry was dated 3 days before the motel's closure, but there was no checkout date recorded. Luna had been exploring the office when she suddenly stopped and began barking at something behind the reception desk. Sarah followed her gaze and noticed a small door she hadn't seen before, partially hidden behind a filing cabinet. "What is it, girl?" Sarah asked, moving the cabinet aside. The door opened to reveal a narrow staircase leading to what appeared to be a basement. The air that wafted up was stale and carried an odd metallic smell that made Luna whine and back away. Sarah found a flashlight in her car and decided to investigate. The basement was small and mostly empty, except for some old maintenance equipment and a safe built into the concrete wall. The safe was old, but appeared to be in working condition. As she examined the safe more closely, Sarah heard Luna barking frantically from upstairs. She rushed back to find her dog standing in front of room 6, pawing at the door and whimpering. Okay, let's check it out," Sarah said, selecting the key marked with a faded number 6. The door opened with a loud creak, revealing a room that looked remarkably different from what she expected. While the exterior had suggested complete abandonment, Room 6 appeared to have been maintained much more recently than the rest of the motel. The bed was made with clean sheets, though they smelled musty from years of disuse. On the nightstand sat a glass of water that had long since evaporated, leaving only mineral deposits on the bottom. But what caught Sarah's attention was a suitcase sitting open on the dresser. Inside the suitcase were women's clothes, toiletries, and a leather journal. Sarah picked up the journal and opened it to the first page. Property of Elena Vasquez. If found, please contact my daughter Maria at... The phone number that followed had a local area code. Luna continued to pace around the room, sniffing at the corners and occasionally stopping to stare at the closet door. Sarah opened the closet and found it empty, except for a few wire hangers and a small jewelry box on the top shelf. The jewelry box contained a wedding ring, a pair of earrings, and a folded piece of paper. Sarah unfolded the paper to find a handwritten note. Maria, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth. The money is safe. Look for the sunrise where the sun sets. Love, Mama. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just an abandoned room. It was a mystery that had been waiting 15 years to be solved. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number from the journal. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. Hello? Hi, is this Maria? Maria Vasquez? Yes, who is this? My name is Sarah Martinez. I just bought the Sunset Motel and I found some belongings that belong to Elena Vasquez. The journal says to contact you if found. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. You found my mother's things? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, in room 6, there's a journal, some clothes, and a note addressed to you. Oh my God, Maria sobbed. I've been looking for answers for 15 years. My mother disappeared from that motel. The police said she probably just left town, but I knew something was wrong. She would never leave without telling me. Sarah's heart sank. Maria, I think you need to come here. There might be more to discover. I'll be there in an hour. I live in Fresno now, but I can drive down. Please don't touch anything else until I get there. After hanging up, Sarah sat on the bed in room 6, trying to process what she had stumbled into. Luna had calmed down, but remained alert, occasionally looking toward the bathroom door. Sarah decided to check the bathroom while waiting for Maria. It was small and basic, with a shower, toilet, and sink. But as she examined the area more closely, she noticed something odd about the tile work behind the toilet. Several tiles appeared to be loose, and the grout around them was a different color than the rest. Using a coin from her pocket, Sarah managed to pry one of the tiles loose. Behind it was a small cavity in the wall, and inside that cavity was a plastic bag containing what appeared to be documents and photographs. The photographs showed Elena Vasquez with various people, including some men in expensive suits who didn't look like typical motel guests. The documents included bank statements, receipts, and what appeared to be copies of financial records. One document stood out, a receipt for a safety deposit box at First National Bank of Bakersfield, dated just 2 days before Elena's disappearance. Luna suddenly started barking again, this time at the window. Sarah looked outside and saw a black SUV parked across the street. 2 men in dark suits were sitting inside, watching the motel. Sarah's military training kicked in. She quickly gathered Elena's belongings and the documents she had found, stuffed them into a bag, and called Luna to her side. "We need to get out of here, girl," she whispered. As they left room 6, Sarah noticed the black SUV starting its engine. She walked casually toward her car, but as soon as she got inside, she hit the gas and drove toward the back of the motel property. There was an old service road that connected to a residential area behind the motel. Sarah had noticed it during her initial inspection and was grateful for her habit of always identifying multiple exit routes. As she drove through the neighborhood, she kept checking her rearview mirror. The black SUV was following her, but at a distance. Sarah pulled into a McDonald's parking lot and called Maria back. "Maria, this is Sarah again. Don't come to the motel right now. I think we might be in danger. Can you meet me somewhere else?" "What do you mean, danger?" "I found some documents hidden in the bathroom, and now there are men in suits watching the place. I think your mother might have been involved in something bigger than we realized." "Oh no," Maria said. "I always suspected something like this. My mother worked as a bookkeeper for several local businesses. A few weeks before she disappeared, she seemed scared and kept talking about people who couldn't be trusted. Can you meet me at the Starbucks on Ming Avenue? I'll bring everything I found. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Sarah drove carefully to the Starbucks, making sure she wasn't being followed. Luna seemed to sense the urgency and remained alert in the passenger seat. At Starbucks, Sarah chose a table near the back exit and waited. When Maria arrived, Sarah recognized her immediately from the family photos in Elena's journal. Maria was in her 40s, with kind eyes that looked tired from years of unanswered questions. "Thank you for calling me," Maria said as she sat down. "I never thought I'd see my mother's things again." Sarah handed her the journal and watched as Maria's eyes filled with tears while she flipped through the pages. "This is definitely her handwriting," Maria confirmed. "What else did you find?" Sarah showed her the photographs and documents. Maria's expression grew more serious as she examined them. "I recognize some of these men," Maria said, pointing to the photos. "This one is Vincent Moretti. He owned several businesses in town back then, including a construction company and a restaurant. My mother did bookkeeping for his restaurant. And this," Sarah showed her the bank receipt. "A safety deposit box. My mother never mentioned having one." Maria looked up at Sarah. "Do you think the key might be somewhere in her belongings?" They went through everything more carefully. In the jewelry box, underneath the ring, they found a small key that looked like it could belong to a safety deposit box. "We need to go to the bank," Maria said. "But first tell me about these men who were watching you." Sarah described the black SUV and the men in suits. Maria's face went pale. "Vincent Moretti died 5 years ago, but his son Tony took over the businesses. If they're involved, this could be really dangerous. What do you think your mother discovered?" "I don't know, but she was always very honest about money. If she found something illegal in the books, she would have felt obligated to report it." Sarah thought about the note Elena had left. "Look for the sunrise where the sun sets." The Sunset Motel. "Maria, I think your mother hid something at the motel. The note mentions looking for the sunrise where the sun sets." "And I found a safe in the basement." "A safe?" "Yes, built into the wall. I couldn't open it, but maybe the combination is in her journal or among these papers." They spent the next hour going through every document and page of the journal, looking for numbers that could be a combination. Finally, Maria found something. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a page in the journal where Eleanor had written what appeared to be random numbers in the margins. 06-15-1987. "That's my birthday," Maria whispered. "June 15th, 1987. If you're captivated by this mystery and want to know what Sarah and Maria discover in that safe, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. Drop a comment below telling us what you think Elena discovered that put her life in danger. Don't forget to smash that like button to help us reach more people with this incredible story. The next part will blow your mind. Sarah and Maria decided to return to the motel, but they took precautions. They drove separately and approached from different directions. Sarah arrived first and confirmed that the black SUV was gone before signaling Maria to join her. Luna was excited to be back at the motel and immediately ran toward room 6, as if she remembered something important there. "She's been acting strange about this place since we arrived," Sarah told Maria as they walked toward the office. "Dogs can sense things we can't," Maria replied. "My mother always said animals know when something isn't right." They made their way to the basement, and Sarah showed Maria the safe. It was an old Mosler model, probably installed when the motel was built in the 1970s. "Okay, let's try your birthday," Sarah said, turning the dial to 061587. The safe didn't open. "Maybe it's in a different format," Maria suggested. "Try just the month and day, 0615. Still nothing. "What about the year she disappeared, 2008? Sarah tried various combinations of numbers they had found in Elena's journal, but nothing worked. They were about to give up when Luna started barking again from upstairs. "What now, girl?" Sarah called out. Luna's barking was coming from room 6 again. When they went upstairs to check, they found Luna pawing at the carpet near the window. "What is it?" Maria asked. Sarah knelt down and felt around the area where Luna was focused. There was something hard underneath the carpet. She found a loose corner and pulled it back, revealing a small section of floorboard that had been cut and replaced. Using a screwdriver from her car's toolkit, Sarah pried up the loose board. Underneath was a small metal box. Inside the box were more documents, including what appeared to be the original financial records that Elena had been working on before her disappearance. There were also photographs of Vincent Moretti meeting with men who looked like they weren't from Bakersfield. But the most important item was a small piece of paper with numbers written in Elena's handwriting. "The truth is in the foundation, 1973-615. And 1973 was the year the motel was built," Sarah said, reading the building permit that was among the papers. "And 0615 is your birthday." They rushed back to the basement and tried the combination, 197306115. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of cash, more documents, and a cassette tape recorder with a tape inside labeled, "For Maria, play only if something happens to me." Maria's hands shook as she pressed play. Elena's voice filled the basement. "Maria, mi amor, if you're hearing this, then something has happened to me. I discovered that Vincent Moretti has been using his businesses to launder money for some very dangerous people. I have copies of all the records that prove it. I was going to take them to the FBI, but I think Vincent found out." The recording continued. "I'm hiding this evidence in the safe, along with enough money to help you start a new life if you need to. The bank safety deposit box has more evidence. If anything happens to me, take everything to Agent Patricia Williams at the FBI field office in Fresno. She's the only one I trust. I love you, Mija. Be careful who you trust. These people will do anything to protect their secrets." The tape ended, and Maria was crying. She was trying to do the right thing, and it got her killed. "We don't know for sure what happened to her," Sarah said gently. "Yes, we do," Maria replied. "My mother would never have left me without saying goodbye. She's been dead for 15 years, and the people who killed her are still out there." Sarah looked at the evidence spread out before them. There were bank records showing large cash deposits that didn't match the restaurant's reported income, photographs of meetings with known criminals, and detailed notes in Elena's handwriting documenting everything she had discovered. "Maria, we need to take this to the FBI just like your mother planned. But what if they're still watching? What if we can't trust anyone?" "We have to try. This is what your mother died for." As they were packing up the evidence, Luna started barking again, this time more urgently than before. Sarah looked out the basement window and saw the black SUV had returned, along with 2 other vehicles. "They're back," Sarah whispered, "and they brought friends." "How did they know we were here?" "I don't know, but we need to get out of here now." Sarah grabbed the evidence while Maria took the cash and the tape recorder. They could hear car doors slamming and voices outside. "Is there another way out of here?" Maria asked. Sarah remembered the old service tunnel she had noticed during her inspection. It connected the basement to the pool equipment room and had an exit near the back fence. "This way," she said, leading Maria through a narrow doorway. The tunnel was dark and smelled of mildew, but it was their only option. Luna followed close behind, her military training making her naturally quiet in dangerous situations. They could hear men entering the motel office above them as they crawled through the tunnel. Heavy footsteps and muffled voices indicated that several people were searching the building. When they reached the pool equipment room, Sarah carefully opened the door and peered outside. The coast was clear, but they would have to cross about 20 feet of open ground to reach the back fence. "On my count," Sarah whispered. 1, 2, 3. They ran across the open area and climbed over the chain-link fence. Sarah's car was parked on the street behind the motel, and they made it there without being seen. As they drove away, Sarah called the FBI field office in Fresno and asked for Agent Patricia Williams. Agent Williams retired 5 years ago, the receptionist told her. But Agent Michael Rodriguez has taken over most of her cases. Would you like to speak with him? Sarah explained the situation briefly and arranged to meet Agent Rodriguez the next morning. That night, Maria stayed at Sarah's small apartment in Bakersfield. They spent hours going through Eleanor's evidence and preparing for their meeting with the FBI. I can't believe my mother lived with this secret for months before she disappeared, Maria said. She must have been so scared. She was brave, Sarah replied. She could have just quit her job and walked away, but she chose to do the right thing. And now we have to finish what she started. The next morning, they drove to Fresno and met with Agent Rodriguez at the federal building. He was a serious man in his 40s who listened carefully as they told their story and presented the evidence. "This is substantial," he said after reviewing the documents. "We've been investigating the Moretti organization for years, but we've never had evidence this detailed." "What happened to Elena Vasquez?" Maria asked. "Officially, she's still listed as a missing person, but based on what you've shown me, I think we can assume she was murdered to prevent her from coming forward with this information." "Now, can you arrest them? We'll need to verify some of this evidence and build a stronger case. But yes, I believe we can finally bring charges against Tony Moretti and his associates." Agent Rodriguez assigned protective detail to both Sarah and Maria while the investigation proceeded. Within 2 weeks, the FBI had raided several Moretti businesses and made multiple arrests. Tony Moretti was charged with money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with Elena's disappearance. Several of his associates were also arrested, including the men who had been watching Sarah at the motel. During the trial, which took place 8 months later, the evidence Elena had gathered proved crucial in securing convictions. Tony Moretti was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Awaiting your confirmation, okay, or continue, to proceed with the second block of the story. 6 months after the trial, Sarah was finally able to begin renovating the Sunset Motel. The FBI had released the property back to her after completing their investigation, and she had big plans for the place that had changed her life forever. Maria had used part of the money Elena left in the safe to start a non-profit organization helping families of missing persons. She named it Elena's Light in honor of her mother's courage. "I never thought I'd be back here," Maria said as she stood with Sarah in the parking lot of the motel, "but somehow it feels right." "Your mother would be proud of what you're doing," Sarah replied, watching Luna chase a butterfly near the old swimming pool. The renovation was going well. Sarah had hired local contractors and was transforming the rundown motel into a modern budget hotel for travelers. Room 6, however, would be special. She was converting it into a small memorial room where Elena's story would be told, ensuring that her sacrifice would never be forgotten. As they walked through the property, discussing the renovation plans, Luna suddenly stopped and began digging near the foundation of Room 6. This was the same area where she had first shown unusual behavior months earlier. "What is it now, girl?" Sarah asked, but Luna was focused on something buried about 2 feet down. Sarah grabbed a shovel from her truck and began digging where Luna indicated. About 18 inches down, she hit something hard. It was a small metal container, similar to the one they had found under the floorboards. Inside this container was a single item, a USB drive wrapped in plastic. "Another surprise from your mother," Sarah said to Maria. They drove to the local library and used one of the public computers to access the USB drive. It contained video files dated just days before Elena's disappearance. The first video showed Elena sitting in room 6, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this, then I'm probably dead," Elena began. "I made these recordings as insurance, hoping I'd never need them. but Vincent Moretti found out that I copied his files. The video continued with Elena explaining in detail how she had discovered the money laundering operation. She had been working late one evening at Moretti's restaurant when she overheard a phone conversation about moving dirty money through the business accounts. I started paying closer attention to the numbers, Elena explained in the video. Cash deposits that didn't match the daily sales, payments to companies that didn't exist, transfers to offshore accounts. It was all there in the books, but Vincent thought I was too stupid to understand what I was seeing. The second video was even more shocking. It showed Elena secretly recording a meeting between Vincent Moretti and several men she identified as members of a drug cartel from Mexico. They were discussing using Moretti's businesses to clean money from drug sales throughout California. They're planning to expand the operation, Elena said in her narration. Vincent is going to buy more businesses in other cities. They're talking about millions of dollars. The third and final video was recorded the night before Elena disappeared. She looked scared and exhausted. "They know," she said simply. "Vincent called me into his office today and asked if I had been making copies of files. I lied and said no, but I could tell he didn't believe me. I'm going to the FBI tomorrow morning, but I'm afraid I might not make it that long." Elena looked directly into the camera. "Maria, if something happens to me, don't try to investigate this yourself. Take all the evidence to the FBI and let them handle it. These people are dangerous, and I don't want you to get hurt." The video ended with Elena saying, "I love you, mija. Always remember that everything I did was to make the world a little bit safer for you." Maria was crying as the video ended. She knew she was going to die, but she still tried to do the right thing. "She succeeded," Sarah said. "Because of her courage, a lot of dangerous people are now in prison." They made copies of the USB drive and delivered them to Agent Rodriguez, who confirmed that the videos would be valuable evidence in ongoing investigations of the cartel's operations in other states. Over the next year, Sarah's renovation of the Sunset Motel was completed. The grand reopening was a community event with local officials, FBI agents, and dozens of people who had followed Elena's story in the news. The memorial room in what had been Room 6 was beautiful. It contained Elena's photograph, excerpts from her journal, and information about her non-profit organization. A plaque by the door read, "In memory of Elena Vasquez, who chose courage over safety and truth over silence." Maria spoke at the reopening ceremony. "My mother disappeared from this place 15 years ago, but her spirit never left. She was waiting for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. Sarah Martinez and her dog Luna were the answer to 15 years of prayers." Sarah had also made another decision. She used part of the money from the safe to establish a scholarship fund for children of military veterans who wanted to start their own businesses. She named it the Second Chances Scholarship because she believed everyone deserved an opportunity to rebuild their life. Luna, now considered a local hero, had her own small monument in the motel's garden. The bronze plaque read, "Luna, a dog who knew the truth, was buried here." The motel became successful beyond Sarah's expectations. Travelers from across the country came not just for affordable lodging, but to see the place where an ordinary woman had shown extraordinary courage. One evening, about 2 years after the reopening, Sarah was working in the office when a young woman entered. She looked nervous and kept glancing over her shoulder. "Are you Sarah Martinez?" the woman asked. "Yes, how can I help you?" "My name is Jennifer Walsh. I work as a bookkeeper for a construction company in Los Angeles. I think my boss is involved in something illegal, and I don't know what to do." Sarah looked at the woman carefully. She was probably in her 30s, with the same worried expression Elena must have had when she first discovered the truth about Vincent Moretti. "What makes you think something illegal is happening?" The numbers don't add up. We're reporting income that's way higher than what we're actually earning from construction jobs. And my boss has meetings with people who definitely aren't in the construction business." Sarah felt a familiar chill. "Have you told anyone about this?" "No, I'm scared. But I heard about what happened here, about Elena Vasquez. I thought maybe you could help me figure out what to do." Sarah invited Jennifer to sit down and called Maria, who arrived within an hour. Together they spent the evening listening to Jennifer's story and helping her understand her options. "The most important thing is your safety," Maria explained. "My mother tried to handle this alone, and it cost her life. But you don't have to be alone." They helped Jennifer contact the FBI and arrange for protective custody while she gathered evidence. Agent Rodriguez, who had become a friend over the years, personally handled Jennifer's case. 6 months later, Jennifer's boss and his associates were arrested in a major money laundering bust. Jennifer testified at their trial and helped convict 12 people involved in the operation. "Elena's story saved my life," Jennifer said at the trial. "If I hadn't heard about her courage, I might have stayed silent and become another victim." The ripple effects of Elena's bravery continued to spread. The Sunset Motel became an unofficial safe haven for whistleblowers and people seeking help with dangerous situations. Sarah and Maria developed a network of contacts with law enforcement agencies and victim advocacy groups. They also started hosting annual conferences at the Motel for people working to expose corruption and criminal activity. The conferences were called Truth Seekers Gatherings, and they brought together FBI agents, journalists, lawyers, and ordinary citizens who had found the courage to speak up against wrongdoing. Luna, now getting older but still sharp, had become the unofficial mascot of these gatherings. She seemed to have a special ability to sense when someone was hiding important information, and her behavior often helped identify people who needed extra support and protection. On the 5th anniversary of Elena's case being solved, the city of Bakersfield declared June 15th as Elena Vasquez Truth and Courage Day. A permanent memorial was erected in the city park, and Maria was invited to speak at schools throughout California about the importance of standing up for what's right. During her speech at the anniversary ceremony, Maria said, "My mother died because she refused to stay silent about injustice. But her death wasn't in vain if it inspires others to find their own courage. Every person who chooses truth over safety, who chooses justice over comfort, honors her memory." Sarah, now a successful businesswoman and advocate for veterans' rights, reflected on how much her life had changed since that day she bought a rundown motel for $3. "People thought I was crazy for buying this place," she told a reporter. "But sometimes the best investments aren't measured in money. They're measured in lives changed and justice served." The Sunset Motel continued to thrive, but it was more than just a business. It had become a symbol of hope for people who felt powerless against corruption and violence. The message was clear. Ordinary people could make an extraordinary difference when they chose courage over fear. Luna lived to be 14 years old, spending her final years as a beloved member of the community. When she passed away peacefully in her sleep, the entire town mourned. Her funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by her story. A new bronze statue was erected in the motel's garden, showing Luna in her alert pose, forever watching over room 6. The inscription read, "Some heroes have 4 legs and know the truth before anyone else does." Maria eventually moved back to Bakersfield and took over day-to-day operations of Elena's Light, which had grown into a national organization. She never married, dedicating her life to helping other families find answers about their missing loved ones. Sarah expanded her business, opening 2 more motels in other California cities. Each one featured a memorial room honoring local heroes who had stood up against injustice. She also wrote a book about her experience, titled $3 Miracle: How a Dog's Instinct Solved a 15-Year Mystery. The book became a bestseller, and Sarah donated all the proceeds to organizations supporting veterans and families of missing persons. 10 years after buying the motel, Sarah was invited to speak at the FBI Academy about the importance of civilian cooperation in solving crimes. During her speech, she said, "Elena Vasquez taught us that heroism isn't about having superpowers or special training. It's about ordinary people making the choice to do what's right, even when it's dangerous. Luna taught us that sometimes the answers we're looking for are right in front of us, but we need to pay attention to the signs. Animals, children, and people who society often overlooks sometimes see the truth more clearly than anyone else." The Sunset Motel still operates today, now run by Maria's daughter, who grew up hearing stories about her grandmother's courage. Room 6 remains a memorial, but it's also a working room where guests can stay and reflect on Elena's legacy. The safe in the basement is now a museum piece, left open to show visitors where Elena hid the evidence that eventually brought down a criminal organization. Tours are given daily, and the guides always end with the same message. Truth has a way of surfacing, even when it's buried deep. Sometimes it just takes the right person or the right dog to dig it up. Sarah, now in her 60s, still lives in Bakersfield and remains active in veterans' affairs and criminal justice reform. She never remarried, saying that her work and her community were family enough. Every June 15th, on Elena Vasquez Truth and Courage Day, Sarah visits Luna's statue and leaves fresh flowers. She always brings a tennis ball, Luna's favorite toy, and places it at the base of the statue. "Thank you, girl," she whispers. "You knew the truth was there all along." The Sunset Motel stands as proof that heroes come in all forms, that justice can prevail even after many years, and that sometimes the most important discoveries are made by those who refuse to give up hope. Elena Vasquez's story continues to inspire people around the world to speak up against injustice, knowing that their courage might be the key to solving mysteries that have haunted families for years. And somewhere in Bakersfield, California, a bronze dog keeps eternal watch, reminding everyone who passes by that the truth is always worth fighting for. This incredible true story of courage, justice, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals has touched millions of hearts. If this story moved you as much as it moved us, smash that subscribe button right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss another amazing story like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time when you or someone you know showed incredible courage in the face of danger. Your story might inspire our next video. Don't forget to like this video and share it with everyone you know. Stories like Elena's need to be heard by as many people as possible. Click that like button to help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers and continue bringing you the most incredible real-life stories of heroism and hope. Subscribe now and become part of our community of truth seekers and justice warriors.